The first step in this process is to get a Dutch oven with a tight-fitting lid. I'm using this one, which is the same one you'll see me use several times throughout the semester. It's kind of one of the biggest workhorses in my kitchen. I use it for everything. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our beans, our water, our chicken broth, those vegetables that we had set aside to cook with our beans, really infusing some good flavor there, the bay leaves, and a little bit of salt. And we're going to put all of those into the Dutch oven, and we're going to bring it to a simmer. So we'll go ahead and get started doing that. First go to the beans. Next is the water. Now that I've got something in my pot, I'll go ahead and turn on my stove here, and we're wanting to bring it to a simmer over medium-high heat. To this I will add my 2 cups of chicken broth. The bell pepper half, the onion half, and then my 2 halves of the garlic head. Pull this papery skin off here really quick. Just gonna put those straight in. We'll pull these out with tongs later. 2 bay leaves, go right in. And then 1 teaspoon of salt. All right. And now we wait and let this come to a simmer. Okay, so it's been maybe about 5 minutes, I'm not really sure, long enough for me to unload my dishwasher, and our beans are starting to come to a simmer. You can see that we've got bubbles rising to the surface. It's not a boil. We don't have those large bubbles in a rolling kind of fashion, but we do have bubbles coming to the surface, so we've reached our simmer. And what we're going to do now is put the lid on our Dutch oven. So we're going to cover it, and we're going to turn the heat down to low, and we're going to leave it alone. We're going to let it sit here for about 30 to 40 minutes and until the beans are cooked just tender. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on it now, and I'm going to turn the temperature down to low, and then we're just going to leave it. And we'll check back on this in a few minutes, in about 30 to 40 minutes, and check to see if the beans are ready to eat. Okay, so our beans have been simmering now for between 30 and 40 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and check them and see what their progress is and see if they are finished cooking. So remember, when you're lifting a lid, you always want to lift it away from you. You can see all that steam rising. If you were to lift the lid towards you, that steam would just flood right into your face and could result in a burn. So we definitely don't want to do that. All right, so I have just dipped into my pot here and pulled out a couple beans. And what I'm checking for, just going to smash a little bit. Oh yeah, that looks good. So these beans are tender. They're cooked through. And so we're going to go ahead and proceed to the next step. And the next step is that I'm going to grab a pair of tongs, and I'm going to pull the pepper, the onions, and the garlic out of our mixture. So that's the next thing that we're going to do. All right, so at this point I'm removing the pepper, the onion, the garlic, and the bay leaves. And I lucked out there that one of my bay leaves was actually inside my pepper, because that's going to be a little bit of a hunt looking for that in this dark colored liquid. Move the onion there. Move one side of the garlic. Here's our other garlic. There's another little piece of garlic there. All right, hunting for that other bay leaf. And it's really not a big deal if I don't find it. There it is. The next step is going to be to strain the beans from the cooking liquid, and we're going to save 2.5 cups of this cooking liquid, and we're going to use that when we cook the beans and the rice together. So what I've done here is I've put a colander inside a glass bowl, and taking care, because this is very hot, I'm going to grab a couple of oven mitts. And I'm just going to pour the beans, I'm going to pour the liquid out and the beans out into this colander right here. All right, and I'm going to set this here, get any additional beans out, but I am not going to wash the Dutch oven. We're going to get straight back to it, but I'm not going to wash it. I'm going to give this a good shake. And I've got a folded up paper towel here to catch any remaining liquid. Set that aside. And I'm going to check down here at eye level to see. All right, I've got 3.5 cups of cooking liquid. I only needed 2.5, so I'm in good shape there. If you did not have 2.5 cups of cooking liquid reserved, you could just pour out everything you had and fill with water until you got 2.5 cups. But I'm in good shape, so I don't need to worry about that. All right, the next thing we're going to do, and I've already done this, is preheat your oven to 350 degrees. So my oven's already turned on. The next step, over medium-low heat, I'm going to pour about half of this olive oil, so about 1 tablespoon of the olive oil over medium-low heat. And to that, I'm going to add our bacon that's been cut into those small pieces. And again, this goes directly into the Dutch oven that we have not yet washed. Get that all right in there. And what I'm going to be doing now is cooking this to render out the fat. I'm going to cook. I'm going to stir frequently until my bacon is lightly browned and the fat has all been rendered. It's going to take probably about 8 minutes to do this. Don't be tempted to crank up the heat really high and get this going faster. You want it over medium-low, and it'll take a little bit of time, but we're just going to keep stirring it, keep moving it around until we've got some nice golden brown bacon and the fat has all rendered out. Okay, so as you can see now, my bacon is nicely browned, and there's still quite a bit of oil in here. I actually have already poured off some of it. So our next step was to add the remaining olive oil along with the vegetables, and I am going to opt to not add that additional oil. I think we have plenty from what's left over with the bacon. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the additional green peppers, the onion, and we're also going to add the cumin, 4 teaspoons of that, and our chopped fresh oregano. And we're going to go ahead and get that going together. And we're probably going to cook these vegetables and in with the bacon and the spices for about 10 to 12 minutes or so until they're starting to get nicely brown. So at this point, what I've done is to my browned bacon, I added the green pepper, the onion, the chopped fresh oregano, and then also the 4 teaspoons of ground cumin. And I increased our heat to medium. We were on medium-low, so I've increased the heat to medium. And I'm just frequently stirring this until the vegetables soften and they start to brown. And once that happens, then we'll be ready for our next step. So at this point, my vegetables have been cooking for another 10 or 12 minutes or so. And I can see that they're starting to lose their bright green color, and that's letting me know that we're moving in the right direction. We're starting to brown a little bit. And so they certainly have softened, and we are ready for our next step. And the next thing that we're going to do, continuing to keep it over medium heat, is we're going to take our minced garlic. and we're going to add that to the mix. Now we're not going to cook this for long, just about a minute or so, and we're going to cook it until it becomes fragrant, and you'll be able to tell. It won't take very long, but we'll just continue to kind of work that into the mix, and you'll really start to smell the garlic. We don't want to cook it so long that it burns, but we want to get it, there we go. We really want to get it incorporated into our mix so it's really infusing its flavor. And it is really, really starting to smell delicious. So that's going to be about 30 seconds to a minute, just kind of working that garlic in there. All right, so after about a minute or so, the garlic is fragrant, the vegetables have browned and are tender. We're going to take our rice that we rinsed, and we're going to go ahead and put that straight into the mix. And we're just going to stir this around. We're not really toasting it like you would in a pilaf type recipe, but we are working it in with the other vegetables. You can tell this is going to be delicious. And then once that's done, we're going to go ahead and put our reserved bean liquid, so the cooking liquid that we cooked our beans in originally. We're going to pour that in. Just put that straight in the pot. We're also going to add our 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. Put that right in. And finally, we're going to add our beans. Put them right back in the pot. So while the rice is cooking, it will continue to cook with the beans as well. So we're going to let that in. We're going to mix that all together. Bring it back to a simmer. At this point, you all are very familiar with what a simmer is. Oh, there's a little bit of garlic skin that I didn't get out earlier. No problem. We're going to bring this back to a simmer. And as soon as we get back to a simmer, we're going to put the lid on and we're going to transfer it to the oven. Okay, so as you can see now, my rice and bean mixture has started to come to a simmer. We've got some little bubbles breaking on the top. And so at this point, all I'm going to do is cover it with my lid, and then I'm going to move it to my oven. So I'm going to go ahead and open my oven here. The rack has been moved to the middle position so that I'll have plenty of room. And I'm just going to carefully transfer. There we go. And now we wait. So the rice and beans are going to cook in the oven for about 30 more minutes. And at the end, I'm going to pull the mixture out, and what should have happened during that point is the rice should have absorbed all of the cooking liquid that was still in there. We're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then we should be able to fluff it with a fork, and it's going to be ready to eat. So it's smelling delicious. I know it's going to make a great dinner for my family tonight, and I hope you all enjoy the recipe as well. While the rice and beans are cooking in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and prepare the garnish that we will use to dress the mixture when we're done. And so the first thing I'm going to do is take this lime. I've scrubbed it really well so the rind is clean. And I'm just going to roll it a little bit. And this is going to sort of free up the juices so that when we go to squeeze the lime, we'll actually get a little bit more juice out. And I'm going to cut it in half. Always remembering my proper knife form here. And I'm going to cut it in half again. And basically what we're doing here is cutting wedges, and we will squeeze the lime juice onto our rice and beans to add a little brightness and flavor. And then our final garnish, got these little green onions, these scallions, and I'm going to cut the root end off. Set that aside. I'm going to cut the tips of the greens off just because they brown a little bit. I don't really want that in my garnish. You can tell I didn't put a wet paper towel under my cutting board. I was sort of taking a shortcut, and it's kind of moving around on me a little bit. So what I'm going to do with this is just very thinly slice it. I'm using my left hand to guide the onions towards the knife. My knife stays in the same place, same motion, up and down. And there we go. So now I've got some beautiful green onion to sprinkle on top and some lime wedges where I can add the juice. Okay, so the beans and rice have been cooking, simmering slowly in the oven for about 30 minutes, and I've just pulled them out and let it sit for 5 minutes. Now I'm going to take the lid off. Again, always opening away, and it's been in the oven, so it's pretty hot. And using a fork, I'm just going to fluff it a little bit to check and make sure that all of the mixture or all the liquid has been absorbed into the rice and beans, and it certainly has. This looks and smells delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and scoop some out. This is something that's best eaten, served immediately. And this is what my family will be having for supper tonight. So I'm going to scoop a little bit out here. Garnish with a squeeze of lime juice on the top. And add a few green scallions. Some color and some added brightness. And there you have it. This is our Cuban style black beans and rice. Smells delicious. I'm going to give it a try. Full of flavor, great texture. Beans are tender but not mushy. Rice is thoroughly cooked. Really delicious. Enjoy.